Some Gamergate supporters believed that pressuring advertisers to pull out would be a good way to convince gaming publications to initiate ethical reforms. What did you think of this strategy?
Well, it was certainly effective. We ended up costing them a lot of money, and some of them did, in fact, institute ethics policies.
You are in support of this tactic, yes?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Do you support contacting advertisers over ethical violations only, or would you also support using the tactic over opinion pieces you don't agree with too?
I think that very much depends on the content of the opinion piece. If the opinion piece is, for example, it's my opinion that all Chinese people are rapists, that's probably the kind of opinion that you should tell their advertisers about, because what the hell? If it's somebody's just, opinion that they like or don't like a video game and you disagree with it, don't go there. But this is something that goes back to my principle of self-defense. If they're weaponizing their press platform to try to smear you, and you respond by telling on them to their advertisers, well, they started it. I believe that if somebody hits at you, then hitting back with proportional force to try to get them to stop, that's justifiable in most cases. But what really defines whether it's okay or not is whether the people doing it are the aggressors or the defenders.
If you go after a gaming publication and cost them money because they express opinions, even awful opinions, including hateful opinions, even hateful towards gamers or hateful towards minorities or whatever it happens to be, don't you think that's anti-free speech?
I think it can be, but I think that there are some lines. Like I've said several times in my life about cancel culture that the problem isn't the cancel, it's the culture. There are some people who deserve that kind of ostracism. There are some people who have done something so crappy it probably should cost them their job or their reputation. For example, someone like Kevin Spacey. I'm totally comfortable with the idea that his career has suffered greatly for the things that he did. That there is a very sizable body of evidence that he did, even if not enough evidence to convict him in court. But that was something really, really serious. The problem with cancel culture is when we've made a culture of it, when we do it over trivialities or over situations where there really isn't a lot of evidence that the person is guilty. And the same is true of things like advertiser boycotts and criticizing people for speech that's considered hateful. All of these things, the term cancel culture didn't really exist at the time, but would now be today understood as efforts to cancel someone. I think whether it is justifiable depends on both how extreme the behavior was and how solid the evidence of guilt is. And sometimes that will inevitably have subjective elements. And if it's done too frequently or too punitively, it can have a very chilling effect on free speech. But sometimes it is justified.
Now, Gawker reportedly lost millions of dollars, seven figures, they say, because of the advertiser boycott. Do you consider the tactic to have been successful?
Resoundingly, Gawker lost a lot of money, it lost its credibility, and ultimately it went under. Not because of that directly, but that certainly took a piece out of them while they were fighting a major lawsuit. And, let's talk for a second about that lawsuit. They published someone's illegally obtained sex tape, and then they defied a court order to take it down. The lawsuit was then bankrolled by someone else who was entirely understandably angry with Gawker and very wealthy, because Gawker had outed this man as gay while he was in Saudi Arabia, a country where people are frequently killed for being gay. That's the kind of stuff that I consider to justify those sorts of boycotts, not just over direct ethical violations, but over things like opinions. Believing that the world should know this man is gay may be someone's vindictive, spiteful, homophobic opinion. But it doesn't give them a license to endanger someone's life. Gawker's lurid obsession with the sex life of a wrestler is not a justification to publish revenge porn. They might think that this is all just opinions and that it's newsworthy. They even defended on the stand that at the civil trial that even publishing the sex tape of a child might be newsworthy. But that doesn't make it so. What they did was awful. And if people are outraged to the point of contacting their advertisers, for stuff that extreme, it's justified.
Now, obviously, these are companies that care about money. And when some Gamergate supporters started costing them large amounts of money, do you think that made it less likely that these gaming sites would engage in reforms and dialogue with the Gamergate community?
I think that in the case of many of these sites, it wouldn't really have mattered what we did. They were dug in, they'd circled the wagons, they were not going to yield to people who they considered a political outgroup or sort of the peasantry questioning their betters. They were going to circle the wagons around their in-group, and they were going to refuse to make changes and refuse to acknowledge the legitimacy of the criticism against them, pretty much no matter what we did. It would not have mattered if we had used a carrot or a stick or what. They were going to do what they were going to do.